Hi guys, I'm Jessica, and my grantmaker is the Friends of Florida State Parks. It was established July 15, 1993. Its official title is Friends of Florida State Parks Incorporated. It is tax exempt under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, and it's the only state park system in the entire nation to win the Gold Medal of Excellence 3 times in a row. And this is their vision statement. They are a nonprofit organization of dedicated members and volunteers who help preserve the natural beauty and resources of the real Florida for generations to come. And the way that they do this is through preserving, protecting, and ensuring accessibility to state parks, educating visitors about the value of state parks, encouraging community engagement and active use of state parks, and providing financial support to supplement state funding. And their tagline is, "Get a little park on ya." They are a CSO, or Citizen Support Organization, which provides support to individual parks by volunteering, educating visitors, hosting events, and raising funds for specific park projects. The Friends of Florida State Parks specifically is a statewide citizen support organization. However, there are also smaller CSOs dedicated to individual parks. There are currently 86 friend groups supporting state parks throughout Florida. However, there are a total of 123 state parks. These groups and citizens that pledge their time play a vital role in supporting Florida state parks, ensuring that our natural, cultural, and historical resources are protected for future generations. The Florida State Park System is comprised of 174 state parks and trails on 791,145 acres. Last year, more than 31 million visitors were served, parks earned over 68 million, and a record 1,196,783 volunteer hours were contributed. In 2016, state parks had an economic impact of over $2.8 billion on local economies throughout Florida. $191,604,535 were contributed to the state's general revenues in the form of state sales taxes. More than 45,525 jobs were created in local economies as a result of state park operations. Florida's state park system exists to set aside and preserve exceptional resource areas to promote a healthy society by providing satisfying outdoor recreation opportunities, and to contribute to the state's economic well-being by providing parks for Florida citizens and visitors and their leisure-related expenditure. And one of the reasons why this is so important is because state parks impact local economies. Rural, big city, you name it, they impact it. And this is often a really big opportunity because Florida is a tourist state. Florida state parks receive no general revenue funds, and general revenue funds are funds based off of business and property taxes. Florida state parks raise 85% of their operating costs through entry and camping fees, as well as concessionary income sharing and other partnerships. State parks have become a lot more self-sufficient throughout the years when it comes to operation costs, and they aim in the next few years to be completely self-sufficient. However, they realize that not all parks have the potential to do this. Meeting this goal requires new ways of increasing park revenues through innovation and partnership, as well as reducing operating costs while staying true to the balanced program of outdoor recreation and resource protection. These dual missions have become the basis for the success of the Florida State Parks program since its inception. But onto the burning question that I know you all have. If Florida State Parks don't get their funding from the General Revenue Fund, where do they get their funding from? And it comes from the Florida State Trust Fund. And that money comes from federal trusts, the lottery, the Public Education Capital Outlay Trust Fund, and the Tobacco Trust Fund, which I personally thought was interesting. And all that money gets put into a pot for redistribution. This pie graph is a breakdown of that redistribution in terms of percentages. But the breakdown money-wise is $304 million is dedicated to the management and protection of state land resources. The appropriation of $149 million for state parks represent an increase of 6% from the previous year. The budget includes $15.4 million for improving state park facilities and $10.4 million to local government and other entities for recreational development. This level of funding for state parks is definitely a missed opportunity to stimulate local economies. In the fiscal year of 2014 to 2015, Florida's parks welcomed a record 31.1 million visitors and generated more than $2.8 billion in local economic activity. That means they made $22 for the economy for every $1 in funding that they were given. These are some of the projects and programs funded by the Friends of Florida State Parks. Yellow Buses in the Parks project is geared towards science-based environmental education for Florida's children. They seek to pay the transportation costs and fund supplies for field trips such as microscopes, hand lenses, binoculars, etc. The Access for All campaign, or the $1 million Access for All campaign, seeks to increase accessibility to all Florida state parks through purchases such as all-terrain powered wheelchairs, access to kayak launches, and Moby mats, or rollout matting for wheelchairs. The LIFE program, or the Learning in Florida's Environment program, is a model for science-based environmental education on public conservation lands. It is a process for reinforcing and enriching the existing curriculum through hands-on field lab facilitated by educators, scientists, and land and resource managers. They also have a matching funds grant program in which they helped provide an aviary in Homosassa and an observation deck and boardwalk in the Sebastian Inlet. They also are part of a sister organization called the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation Incorporated, or FGTF, in which they help match a lot of projects funded towards Florida trails. The next two slides are just a few of the 19 projects and grants funded throughout the state. The smallest amount funded was $7,000, while the largest was $275,000. In terms of the good match criteria, eligible applicants are, as you can see, kind of all across the board. As long as the grant or the project is geared towards improving Florida state parks or the image of Florida state parks, or to quote from the book, is direct service, research for policy purposes, research for activism purposes, education for the public or policymakers, or just activism in general, Friends of Florida State Parks are usually willing to sponsor these types of grants. The geographic area is Florida. However, since their sister organization is the Florida Greenway and Trails Foundation, it often doesn't extend only to state parks. Often if this state park borders a forest or is close to a trail or a greenway, they will also extend their funding and grants in order to help those smaller organizations. When it comes to subject matter interests aligning with the Friends of Florida State Parks, often they start with the larger parks or the parks with the most need. So if your grant or your request for proposal is for something smaller or unnecessary or painting a building, it's going to get moved to the bottom of the list, which is a good segue into requests for proposals. In order to get a request for a proposal and get it approved for the Friends of the Florida State Parks, you would need to go to the park you wish to help first and see if they have a smaller CSO organization like the Friends of Stephen Foster Memorial Park. You would go to the park first, then the CSO for the park, and then go to the CSO for the whole state. I briefly mentioned the problem-solving approach or political ideology earlier when I was talking about eligible applicants, because depending on your problem-solving skills, quite honestly, will depend on which park is your best fit. It's not just about the cost of the project, it is about the need. When it comes to Florida State Parks, the approach is time. If you want money, it doesn't matter how much money it is. You have to be willing to invest the time in order to get the money. You have to be willing to invest the time to go to these charitable organizations or these foundations and raise the money in order to follow through with the grant that you are writing. Hopefully you guys found this as fascinating as I did. I kind of went down a bit of a rabbit hole with the budget, but I thought it was important to see where the funding for state parks was coming from, so you could see where these organizations are making up for the lack of funding, because it is a very important part of how state parks are run. And this is just my works cited. I went down the rabbit hole, like I said, with the budget. And then the Florida State Parks website is a very resourceful website. There are the friend group website for the Florida State Parks. You can also find smaller friend groups as well. And yeah, that was it. Thanks for your time. Hope everyone has a good day. Good luck on your projects. Bye.